So today's session, we're going to have some coaching from Mustakim. Mustakim is going to give us some coaching for this lesson. Mustakim, go ahead.
Sure. Okay, so today I'm going to show you a couple of games. The first game I'm going to show you is between Alaxander and McDonnel. He's actually an Irish player, and another French player called on black, Louise Charles Mahe de la Bourdonnais. This was played in 1834 in London, and at that time, these two players were considered the two best in the world. So when they played against each other, it was quite a big deal. Now this is nicknamed La Bourdonnais Picnic. La Bourdonnais is the guy on black, and this game really just very beautiful, and the finish was exquisite. And I'll show you how La Bourdonnais managed to win this beautiful game. Okay, so we'll start. E4, C5. This is called the Sicilian defense. Knight F3, Knight C6, D4, pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, E5. So this is very standard Sicilian defense. And now McDonnel plays Knight C6, which is nowadays a bit unusual. Usually nowadays people go Knight B5 and threaten Knight D6 check. But okay, this was played in 1834. Back then it wasn't as developed. So instead, McDonnel plays Knight captures Knight on C6. And now B captures C6. In chess, we have a rule, we take from the side to the center. So, again, this is from the side to the center, because again, like I said before, these four squares, D5, E5, E4, and D4, they're very important in chess. So with this B captures C6, the idea is to play D5. Maybe not the next move, but in the future, and have a compact center. This is the idea. And now bishop c4, preventing black from playing. Now knight f6, again, renewing the threat of playing pawn to g5. Now bishop g5. The idea with bishop g5 is, again, if d5 now, then what white will do is pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, bishop captures knight, queen captures, and say queen captures d5, and now black is a pawn up. Sorry, white is a pawn up. So instead, black plays bishop e7, queen e2, d5. Now he plays d5 because he has the means to do so. Bishop captures, bishop b3, and now castles. So castles, a5. Can someone tell me what is the threat now for black? What does black want to play if it's his move? Someone tell me. Any ideas? Anyone?
I'm thinking.
What's that?
I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
Maybe the bishop a to c. The bishop a to c can go there and kill the queen.
You want to play here, yeah?
Yeah, and then the bishop can kill the queen.
Yeah. Okay. It's a good idea, yeah. Well, definitely what's one of the ideas, yes. But I think the main idea is just to play a4. And it blocks the bishop, okay? Of course, you cannot take the pawn because then the rook is here. But definitely bishop a6 is also an idea, for sure. No doubt. Okay, so now e takes. So if a4 now, then bishop c4. He has space to move. So he takes the pawn, again, renewing the threat of a4. Now rook d1. If a4 now, then you take the bishop here. Sorry, the pawn there. So d4, c4, queen b6, bishop c2. And now you'll see I really like black's pawn structure. These two pawns in the center are very strong. And there's a term in chess called passed pawn. So the d pawn now is a passed pawn because no pawn from white can attack it. So it can push pretty much freely. Okay, bishop b7, knight d2, rook a e8. Knight e4, bishop d8. So again, usually you'd like to move your pieces forward rather than backwards. But Labordine, the player on black, has a very strong idea. His idea is to play f5. That's why he did not play, if you can remember, this rook to e8, because then f5 is a bit weak. Whereas now, f5 is strong because this rook is actually defending the pawn if he ever moves to f5. So c5 attacking the queen, queen c6, f3. And now we will see that this pawn on c5 is weak for white. So what does black do? He attacks the pawn. So threat is to take the pawn. Now rook a c1. Now I have a question for the class. Is bishop takes c5 a good move for black?
Yes.
If I take this,
Then the queen can take the horse. So yeah.
and if I do this, check. Then what do you do as black?
Move your king.
Take or move?
Take.
And if I do this?
Oh.
See, Alfie is smiling because he likes this little sacrifice. Okay, so yeah, again, don't take the pawn because yeah, you win the pawn for maybe like 1 or 2 moves, but then you realize he takes, and then there's a discover check. This is called discover check. Sorry, not discover attack. So the bishop moves out the way and is attacking the queen. All right, so yeah, don't do that in the game. Just make sure you calculate ahead. Okay, so instead, black continues with this plan, f5, like I said. Now check, queen c4, king h8, and bishop a4 attacking. So white realizes that, he has to do something quick, or else, these 3 pawns in the center can be very, very strong. So now queen h6, bishop takes, rook takes. Sorry, pawn takes, knight. And so look, he what's the McDonnel? No, McDonnell takes the exchange. Exchange means black sacrifices a rook for the bishop. The rook is stronger than a bishop, but black sacrifices because he has rapid development and he can actually attack quicker. So first he takes the knight. If let's say white moves his bishop, then very simply you can just take the pawn here, and then it's very much crushing. So instead, white plays a counterattack, c6. So again, threatening to take the bishop. But now, really nice move by black. Pawn takes pawn. Just does not care about the bishop. If pawn takes pawn, pawn takes bishop now, then
rook takes bishop.
Rook takes bishop, no, because queen c8, and you can threaten your queen.
Oh.
Yeah, I think the quickest move, is just queen e3 check. If king h1, then pawn takes pawn, king takes, rook f2 check, king h1, queen f3, king g1.
And that'll be check.
Yeah, they'll form move check, and not too hard. So just revise that quickly. C takes bishop. Queen e3 check. King h1, pawn takes pawn, king takes, rook f2, blah blah blah. Game over. So instead, rook c2. If queen e3 now, then I think rook. If queen e3 now, then king h1. Pawn takes pawn, not take with king, but rather rook takes pawn. Maybe king takes as well is okay, but rook takes is just much safer. Okay, so instead, bishop c8, played by black, and now bishop d7. Again, he doesn't want to lose his bishop, so again, he moves the bishop away. Now f2. So f2, is, first of all, he doesn't want white to take his pawn, and also he has future ideas of, say, queening. So rook f1, d3, rook c3, bishop takes bishop, pawn takes bishop, and now e4. So yes, it's true that white has an extra rook compared to black's bishop, but as you can see, these three pawns are just monsters. I mean, they'll just push forward and they'll probably queen in the future. So the rook doesn't mean that much. So queen c8. The threat is if rook takes queen, then pawn takes queen. Sorry, pawn takes rook, and it's actually a checkmate. So you have to be very careful not to take the queen. Instead, you defend. So bishop d8. Now queen c4. Queen e1. Very nice move, because look, if rook takes, then checkmate. And if you want to be really, really cheeky, instead of doing warmate, you can do a queen sacrifice check. Okay, and rook takes like this. Your queen down, but you checkmate the white king. But look, this is much more quicker. So rook c1. Again, do not take the rook here, because you will actually lose your queen and you probably lose the game as well. So be very careful about that. So rook c1, and now like super move, just push the pawn again. I mean, look, it's brilliant. So let's say rook takes queen, then just pawn takes queen. This rook cannot take this rook because queen is actually pinning. So queen c5 instead was played. And now rook. Okay, be very careful, because white is actually throwing checkmate to take, white taking the rook on f8. So move the rook away. And yeah, if queen takes pawn now, then I believe just take that and you're a piece up. So let's say this queen, you're just a piece up. Okay, 2 pieces for black and only 2 for white. So instead, rook d1 was played by white. And now you see why I love this game so much. Okay, so first of all, e3, queen c3, queen takes rook, brilliant. Rook takes queen, and now e2. I mean, now white result. Just look at these pawns. I mean, how often in chess do you get 3 pawns on your opponent's second rank? I mean, it's unbelievable. This is like every like chess player's move, you know. And bear in mind, white is a queen up, but he cannot do anything. Okay, I mean, it's totally crushing. So again, you're threatening f1 check, e1 check, pawn takes rook checkmate. I mean, it's simply crushing. So quick example, just queen takes, then just f1, pawn to queen, check, rook takes, pawn takes queen. I mean, look, it's absolutely brilliant. I think probably one of my favorite games ever. Any questions before I look over this game quickly?
No.
Okay. I'll just go over this game really quickly, and then we'll move on to the next one. So okay, e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, a4, pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, e5, knight takes knight. I'm going over this really quickly so I can move on to the next one. If any questions, please pause. Please ask me. Pawn takes bishop, bishop c4, knight f6, threatening d5, bishop g5, bishop e7, queen e2, d5, bishop takes, bishop b3, castle, castle a5, threatening a4, pawn takes pawn, rook d1, d4, c4. Move I don't like as white. I'd rather just play, for example, knight d2. Because c4 gives the option of black pushing the pawn in the future without any white pawn attacking it. Queen b6, bishop c2, bishop b7. I must say before, if you play any weird move, say a4, then white will play queen e4, threatening checkmate, and also attacking your rook here. So be very careful. Bishop b7, knight d2, rook a e8. Again, idea is to play bishop d8 in the future and play f5. So knight e4, bishop d8, like I said, c5, queen c6, f3, bishop e7, attacking the opponent c5, rook a c1, and f5. Simply, black's position is superior to white. Now check, king h8, bishop a4. Again, okay, attacking the queen, also the rook in a way, but again, black's position is too good to even think about saving his rook, for example. So queen h6, bishop captures rook, pawn takes knight. Very important move, as if you take with the bishop. Okay, still black's position maybe has some pluses, but definitely not as crushing as before. So take the knight, c6, attacking the bishop, pawn takes pawn. Again, if c captures bishop, then simply just queen e3 check, and it will lead to a quick checkmate. So instead, rook c2, queen e3 check, king h1, and now move the bishop away, bishop d7, f2, rook f1, d3, rook c3, bishop takes, pawn takes, e4, defending the pawn on d3 as well, because at the time, white was threatening to take. So e4, queen c8. Again, do not take the rook. So do not take the queen on c8 because you will be checkmated very quickly. So instead, play bishop d8, and now queen c4, queen e1, rook c1, defending the rook on f1, pawn d2, queen c5, threatening checkmate. Be very careful. So black moves his rook out of the way. Rook d1, e3, queen c3, and now the beautiful finish. Queen takes, rook takes, e2. The game is over. So definitely a really nice game, and yeah, black just showed his class. Okay, I'll move to the next game now, or do you want to ask any questions real quick?
No, I think that's fine. We're gonna stop this one here.